Ladies and gentlemen, IPA partners and supporters, thank you and welcome to the first social distancing version of On the Couch, brought to you by IPA and PwC. My name is Marcus Catchpole. I'm a PwC partner leading the work our firm does to help our South Australian clients with their COVID-19 responses. In particular, helping them understand the risks posed by the pandemic, how they can best respond and recover quickly when it's over. And with me today is Commissioner Erma Ranieri, Office of the Commissioner for Public Employment. Welcome, Erma.
Thank you.
I'd like to acknowledge that the land we meet upon today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people. Mani Ngā Pudni, Nadlu Tampundi Nadlu Kaurna Yantunga Inbarendi, Nadlu Tampundi Kaurna Miyana Prana. Welcome everybody. We acknowledge that we meet on Kaurna land and we celebrate the Kaurna people who are alive today. As the international response to COVID-19 pandemic continues to develop, we know that organisations are facing significant challenges to which we need to respond rapidly. PwC is working closely with organisations globally, nationally and locally to help them prepare and respond. Our teams have worked with companies, governments, regulators, NGOs and international organisations around the world through a number of serious outbreaks including Ebola, MERS, SARS and bird flu. The health and safety of PwC staff, clients, sponsors and organisations such as IPA SA, including members, customers, speakers and facilitators, are of a high priority. Together we'll be hosting all the On the Couch events online, and we'd like to thank PwC and IPA management and staff for working together to deliver today's session. I'd like to acknowledge IPA's other major partners, being the State Government of South Australia, Senior Management Team and Flinders University. And we also acknowledge IPA's professional members and counsellors. I'd like to thank our speaker for today, Erma.
Thank you, Marcus.
So, this is a little different, Erma.
Yes.
In that we're making sure we're 1.5 metres at least away from each other.
Or 2, I think now. So
I think
that's
it is
great.
2, so we're separated.
Yes.
But it means we can still ask some questions and get things out. So
even more
good.
so, yeah.
So maybe a great place to start is, what is the Commissioner of Public Sector Employment's role in a global pandemic like we're seeing now?
It's a really good question because we've never really had a global pandemic of this scale. So really we're all in this together and I think we're trying to work that out. So the way I see it is the Commissioner sets the standards and what we call determinations in the public sector. And so the immediate thing that I felt was necessary was to work out if anyone was affected, as the federal government and our own state governments are giving us directions in relation to self-isolating, sort of the social distancing. The thing that the Commissioner needs to do is to ensure that every public servant knows what that means for their work. Mm-hmm. And in particular, if people are well, but they actually have to self-isolate, what sort of leave do they take or what do they do? So I came out very quickly with updating last week a Commissioner's determination that granted the 15 days COVID-19 leave. Now, there's some nuances about that leave and we'll probably unpack that a little bit in the interview. So my role is to make sure that employees know what's expected of them and how do the conditions of employment basically adapt to the current situation, but it's unprecedented. Yeah. So we're all in this together.
And so having that clarity and those clear decisions is going to be really important.
Absolutely.
Does that role, you've described the role as it currently sits now, does that role change over time as things start to escalate, if things get worse?
Good point. There's a couple of things I think I need to explain. We were in a sort of public health emergency, which actually has certain powers for certain people. So the public health officer was sort of in charge of the incident up until recently. Now it's actually a state emergency, which means that the police commissioner takes charge. And that means communications are flowing through, that, if we're saying we're going to kind of protect our borders, that the police are involved in that. So now we've actually made it a full-scale emergency. In terms of my role, one thing that we know is that we need to communicate with the whole of the public sector with one voice and some consistency. And I feel that that's the role that we're starting to play. An even bigger role is if this goes for longer, which we think it might, I'm hoping that we can flatten that curve. However, if we're going to have a proportion of the workforce out, whether it's caring, whether it's unwell, or whether they're isolating, I think the role of the Commissioner is a very strong one when it comes to mobilising the whole of the workforce and moving people where they're needed most and what capabilities we'll need.
Yeah, that will be an important role. Thank you. The public sector workforce is a very large part of the South Australian community and plays many important roles. Some, in terms of this pandemic, are really obvious, such as frontline healthcare, aged care, etc. What are some of the less obvious roles that the public sector plays, and would you care to share some of those with us?
There's a lot of those people in the frontline services, which are absolutely critical at this particular time, need to be supported.
They do.
So the people behind them, supporting them, whether it's ordering the medical equipment, or whether it's the people in SA pathology ordering tests and people to be able to test. And then there's the payroll people. You know, when you're looking at the economic kind of crisis that's happening, the last thing you'd want is for, the whole of our shared services to go down and people not be paid. Or Super SA people, where people have got their money and wanting to know what's actually happening with the economy. So the public sector, whilst some of us are what we call sort of behind the scenes, not frontline services, we're there to support those frontline services. So it's a delicate balancing act to make sure that both are supported in the right way. And then, of course, our frontline services might be affected by COVID-19. And then it's what can some of our back office people do, and perhaps a broader community that might have skills that could actually fill in some of those roles if they've got the qualifications, willingness to help out. So there's a lot, we're all interrelated, and I think that's how the government works, but more importantly, that's how the whole of South Australia needs to work at this current time.
Yeah, helping each other out.
Absolutely.
I think's really important. You recently published the COVID-19 workforce considerations for the public sector. As we talk to our clients about, clear decisions and communications are really important at times like this. What is the main purpose of the document?
Well, things are unfolding really rapidly, and I think it's, while everyone's dealing with their particular bit of the world, my bit of the situation is basically we've got staff out there. I'm getting questions from my own staff, worried about vulnerable members of the family. We're not sure about what will happen. It's that uncertainty. So what we needed to do very quickly, and I believe we were probably the first state in South Australia to come up with a paper that actually says, here's some information from the World Health or our health authorities in terms of hygiene, sanitation. We have an OC health and safety responsibility. But there's other things around, flexible work. We've actually got some great flexible work arrangements. Now's the time to see if we can actually activate them. So we talked a bit about, what happens if you are needing to self-isolate because you came back from overseas. Well, you could access the leave, the COVID leave, and then we could get you working from home. So then we had a graded approach to how we might get people who are well to work from home and continue the business continuity. So it was everything from what do you need to know to keep yourself healthy, to basically how can you do your work not in your normal way, to full-blown you have COVID-19, and then how that might affect you and your loved ones. And if you're a carer, what does that actually mean and what sort of leave could you have? So it was my responsibility to make sure that we were clear about what sort of things everyone should be thinking about. That's a moving document though.
Yes.
It's changing basically daily in terms of the sorts of things. So the week before we put out the considerations, last week we put out the leave arrangements. And this week I think we'll ramp up working from home, checklists, making sure that people are being checked in, and wellbeing and productivity.
And so that document and those subsequent documents that you talk about are the places people should go to look for the answers to their questions in the first instance?
And for people that are actually listening to this, they're public servants, we will be sending out what we call a whole of government email tonight, to basically give them some ideas about where they can get some more information about checklists from working from home, issues with their computers, how they check in with their workers. And more importantly, I think there's heightened levels of kind of awareness. And I won't call it anxiety, but I think it's the uncertainty that people have, and where they can get the supports for their own sort of well-being and expectations of managers, even though you're not seeing your people. We're not quite used to it in government. If you don't see your people, productivity can be fine as long as you're checking in with people and making sure that you're looking at them holistically, not just what they might be producing at their home or not.
Yes, as someone who's been working remotely for the best part of a week, that human interaction becomes more and more important.
It actually is, and I tell you, I've become an expert on Microsoft Teams, but I think we have to acknowledge that some people are more comfortable with it than others. Now, I'm an extrovert. I like the social interaction, and I think we need to acknowledge that people that like that sort of social interaction might find it quite difficult, because you kind of are looking for that stimulation, you're looking for that sort of a social interaction, and we're continually being kind of reminded to socially distance. And so I think those sorts of conversations become really important, including, are you keeping fit? What are you doing to kind of switch off? And some boundaries, because when you're at home, you kind of can get on that computer all the time, and then you're not sure when you're actually working or not. So we've got all of that in the checklist.
That's fantastic. So as well as covering important leave issues, the document talks a lot about workforce flexibility and adaptability. What are the most important messages you'd like today's audience to take away about the importance of a flexible and adaptable workforce as we respond to this pandemic?
I think it's the things I've already talked about. One is, can your job be done in a different way? And get prepared before you do head off, and I think many have already done that. But if you're in the process of actually transitioning to work from home, be really clear about expectations, be clear about checking in with your boss to actually say, or your team, that this is your bit and this is what you've done. So completion of something and being clear that you've done something and what's the expectations for something else makes it like you're kind of doing things and it's progressing projects that might have been in your performance agreement. So being very clear around those parameters is really, really important. Again, your ergonomics, where you're sitting, what you're doing, that you're safe in your home. All of those things are important, and that your well-being is also being looked after. So if you feel disconnected and it's not working, you'll need to kind of talk about that early on in the piece so we can actually do other things. EAP will be provided, and we can talk a bit more about that. So there's a whole lot of things, because you might be worried about family members.
Absolutely.
Ageing parents. My mother's 83 and has chronic kind of breathing issues. So we're all in this together, because you're worried about that, but you're also worried about how you show leadership for the workforce that you're working for. So we all have those kind of worries, and we need to acknowledge that and work together on it.
That human element is hugely important, I think.
Very, very important, because it actually does make you kind of, you just don't know what it is that you can control.
That's right.
And I think if we talk about that and we all feel the same, you kind of get a bit relieved. The only other thing that really resonated with me today in reading something is, this will pass.
Yes.
This will pass. I know it sounds like a long time, but we will get through it. And I believe that we will be better off at the end of it, because it's testing our resilience, it's testing our ability to do things differently. And my hope is that we actually have a new way of working in the future and be able to adapt.
Well, I think that's a great segue into the next question I want to ask. I personally am a firm believer that out of every challenge comes some learnings and some benefits that we can all learn from. And one of the benefits, I think, of this pandemic is that it will accelerate the use of technology and a change in our mindset about how we can be more productive and more efficient. And that doesn't always mean working from home, but it just means, how do we get the same outcome in different ways?
Absolutely.
What do you think are going to be some of the benefits that come out of this in the long term for the
I don't
public
reckon I'll
sector
have a
workforce?
face-to-face meeting again. What I'm finding with the teams and the technology is that we're a lot more efficient at actually getting on with the business. Like, what do we need to do? Rather than, I guess it's good to have conversations, but we get on and do the business. I feel like I have a little bit more time to actually do some thinking and to write a few things and the rest of it. I think if we can get the balance with the social interaction when we can, I think that's the bit I will keep. And that is, you finally worked out how many meetings you really do need to have and how much of that you can do either online, through Zoom, through Microsoft Teams and the rest of it. And it's efficient. And quite frankly, a lot of the big fours have been doing it for a really long time, and it's sort of business as usual. I'd like to see some of that to be business as usual in government. We should be more flexible, but never forgetting that we're here to provide those critical services unlike any other business.
That's great. I'm really interested as a social experiment, given the number of calls that we're all doing. We seem to be better at turning up to phone calls or video meetings on time than we are face-to-face meetings. I wonder if we can carry that forward again into when we get to meet face-to-face in the future.
That's a good point, mainly because you know that the others are relying on you to kind of get in on a meeting at the same time. We're having a few glitches in terms of, our speakers aren't working and other things, but it's lovely to see people at the other end kind of going, I'm not sure what's going on here. And it's happening at the highest level. So I've just come from our Senior Management Council, which is all the chief executives. We're doing all of that through Microsoft Teams. And there's at least 15 or 16 of us, and it worked a treat.
Yeah.
So we can do it, and we expect our teams to be doing it as well.
That's fantastic. Changing tack slightly, looking after each other will be an important part of how teams, workforces and communities get through the next few months. What advice would you give to those leading teams at the moment to make sure that they're checking in on their people and showing that leadership and that human connection?
So the first thing is I think they need to understand that their leaders themselves are probably going through a level of sort of heightened awareness as well. And I had a discussion with my own leaders today to say, look, I'm feeling a little bit anxious about my mum and other things. So firstly, we're all human and everyone's feeling the same. And the second thing is to check out people's circumstances. It's very, very important to work out whether they're caring for extended families or whatever, and then working through whether working from home is the best option for them at this time.
Yes.
And it's a great time to use excess leave or caring for a family member. I address all of those in the workforce considerations paper.
You do.
So if you want to care for family members and feel like working at the moment's just not going to work for you, then you should explore all of those things. And then remember to be as open as you can around the things that are worrying you, or you have no clarity. You're not sure about whether you should be in the office, whether you're expected to do so, come in occasionally. So you need to ask managers if they're not doing it. We're trying to get them to be clearer. If they're not, you need to ask. This is not the time to be sort of wondering what's expected of you. If you're really worried about actually going in to work because you're on a bus or whatever, and that worries you, then you should ask to be working from home if that's possible, or any alternatives. As I said, take leave if you've got it. So I think it's about making sure that you're managing your life and what's uncertain at the moment in a way that we can all chip in, because work needs to be done and everyone can at least be calm for a bit in terms of how we get through it. So it's one of those things, it's about you as an individual, it's about people around you. And what I found mostly is people are working very well together.
Yes, that's some great advice, and I think if there's ever a time to over-communicate, remembering that communication's a two-way street, asking questions, I'd say now's the time.
And it might be easier, like if you've actually had trouble connecting with a leader face-to-face, it might actually be easier to kind of get onto sort of one of the IT platforms, and actually it might be easier.
That's true.
It just might remove, because you're in your kind of comfort area, it might just remove some of that tension and just say what you need to say if you're feeling uncertain and need some clarity.
Great advice, thank you. Speaking of questions and clarity...
Yes, thanks for all your questions.
Our IPA members have also asked some questions. So I won't have a chance to get through all of them, but I've tried to pick out a selection of what we could go through. So the first one is around what is the OCPSE's stance on the option of leave provisions for staff who may be directed to work from home during the COVID-19 virus term?
So working from home is our first option. So basically to help with the social distancing and to reduce the risk, so it's part of the risk mitigation, our first preference would be, if you can, work from home. The concern I have is that it's not for everyone, because we do have critical services and those that support critical services, but where possible, people are to work from home. I think then we will do our part to actually flatten that curve. The less people that are kind of interacting and going onto public transport, the better. So the public sector is doing all it can to get people. That's number one. And if you're isolating because you come back from overseas, across the border or whatever, then the first option is working from home as well. If you're sick, it's sick leave. That's what it's there for. If you have to care, it's caring leave. So we've got categories of these leave. It's all in the guide and in the determination. So we believe we've covered for the situation for now.
Yes.
If it goes longer, then we may need to revise it, because there might not be enough leave if we keep going. So we'll need to kind of keep updating depending on the circumstances and what sort of future closures or shutdowns might mean. So at the moment, this is what it looks like. We will be very regularly.
So first port of call is the guide, and for subsequent things, go to the guide.
The guide and the determination on leave. There is a quick reference guide which we're sending out today, so you'll have a look at it. We have got a few questions around that. Staff might have questions. So COVID-19 leave is for basically people that need to self-isolate, may not have any leave but are not sick.
Yes.
But if you're sick, it's sick leave, no matter what it is. I mean,
yes.
It's COVID-19, it's a flu, it's a sore throat or whatever, it's sick leave.
And take advantage of it and stay home if you're sick.
Exactly.
Understood. Another question is, are you able to advise how EAP services will continue to operate for anybody needing support during the time? Because it is a very stressful time for some people.
It is.
And there is a lot of uncertainty around. So those people who need to utilise an EAP, what are the arrangements around that?
Well, every agency has an EAP. So everyone should know who their EAP is, and we have stressed that. And in the email tonight, we will also be talking about EAP services. And we're talking about productivity and wellbeing, because the two go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
So EAP services have actually adapted. They're actually ensuring that they have online counselling. But if their EAP isn't able to do that, ask your manager. We will find counsellors out there. Everyone in South Australia needs to keep working. There's a lot of counsellors that have gone online. Yes. And if your EAP isn't, we'll find someone for you that can actually help you. So yes, that support is there. You're working at home, or if you're sick or whatever, you might need some counselling. It was available then, it's available now.
Great. Another question that's here is around if people are working from home for an extended period and they're using their own Wi-Fi or mobile phone and computers, the question is, will they be reimbursed for that? I
can't answer that question at the moment, and I'm not sure how big that problem is. I think everyone is connecting into their Wi-Fi. We'll actually have to have a look at that. I'm preparing frequently asked questions with some responses. Every question on the list that we've received today from members, IPA members, we will try and have an answer to it, but I can't answer that now because we just haven't tackled it.
No,
but I get it, and we'll try
right?
and respond to that.
No, that's great. Thank you. So watch this space. It'll be an
Absolutely.
updated guide.
Yes.
Very good. On a slightly different piece from that, what about people who don't have their own Wi-Fi and computers at home? Is it assumed that they will, and what are the options for them?
No, and I think they need to talk to their manager and their own ICT in their department. We're looking for VPN access to people that are considered to be essential but needing to work from home. They will need to be given all the things to be able to get themselves online. Understood. So they need to check with their local ICT people and their manager. If they're not critical services, there might be a way around getting into their emails and other things to keep in touch. So there's different levels, and some of us that may not need the VPN will give it to people that need it more than us. So we've got access to remote VPNs, yes. And what we've got a pool of them at the moment, because some departments have found their own solution for their department. We will move them around the public sector for whoever needs it.
That's great. Thanks, Erma. I think those pieces around getting the job done, yep. And doing what's required whilst keeping ourselves safe is really important.
Yep.
The other key messages I heard you talk about was really about that human connection and looking after each other, which is really important. and your important role in trying to make sure that you proactively answer as many questions that are coming up for people, whilst recognising that those questions are going to continue to evolve as the pandemic and our response continues to evolve.
Well, my only comment is that it's new for us. And I guess in my long career, I have not seen anything of this scale.
Yeah.
So it's new for all of us. And I believe that if we can work together, we will come out of it much better. And I believe it'll kind of create something that is looking at more sort of social responsibility for us working together in the public sector. So we can make a lot of really positive inroads through something as significant as this. And my only final comment is that I did actually bump into the Premier earlier on, and I did say I was doing this Q&A and talking a bit about what the public sector's doing. He just wanted me to say that he believes that the public sector is doing an exceptional job in what is really quite turbulent times, and he just wanted me to say thank you to everyone for what they're doing, and it's going to rely on all of us doing the right thing and supporting each other.
Absolutely, and well said. So thanks, Erma,
Thank you
to all our listeners for your flexibility during these unprecedented times. Thanks very much.
Thank you.